Welcome, everyone. I'm Blair Clark, and today on the show, our guest is going to share with you how they went from being a school teacher to launching their own real estate brokerage. Our guest today is Deanna Niemasz, and she's going to talk about how she pivoted from her current career into motherhood, into retail real estate, and then just kept going. And so, some wisdom that I really want you guys to listen for during the interview today is Deanna talks about how she really leveraged the time that she was given and the current skill sets that she already had to build and launch and scale what it is that she's doing with real estate today. So, without further delay, let's get into the interview because it's going to be a good one. All right. Well, thank you, Deanna, for joining me today. I really, really appreciate you coming on here to tell us about your story. So, just give us a brief snapshot of where are you at in the world right now?
All right. So
Where are you?
right now, I just, as of this year, opened my own real estate brokerage. So
Ooh,
I left a big box brokerage and now I'm kind of a smaller independent boutique brokerage. So I sell real estate and I
mhm.
absolutely love it. I love the freedom it's given me and just the options I have that have come from it.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So, for those of you who are watching, we're based in the Southeast Michigan area, and Deanna is somebody that I know, my husband knows even better from the past, from past lives that we
Mhm.
used to live, which sounds like really mysterious and intriguing. So we'll get through that journey in just a little bit, but give me like the Reader's Digest condensed version of you worked for a big box brokerage and now you have your own. Like
Mhm.
how does somebody do that? How did you make that leap?
Um, so the reason that I did it is I worked with my father-in-law who's been in real estate for over 40 years. He's been in it
Okay.
a long time. And he has always said since I met him that, he wished he would have done this. He wished he would have done this. And I
Mhm.
consistently asked him, why not? Why didn't you? And his answer was it's too late or there's too many new things to learn. He's not ready to embrace that change. So one of the
Mhm.
reasons why I jumped into it was because I don't want to get stuck in my ways. I don't want to get too used to a specific format. And so that's why I decided this is the year to do it before I get too comfortable and almost feel like you're stuck there and you don't
Mhm.
have any other options. So I like doing that for myself. It was definitely a challenge. I found some good mentors to kind of question and reach out to that have done it in the past. And that was a big help, but I'm really glad I did it.
Okay. So at what point in time, if we were to like kind of timestamp it, did you do that a few months ago, a year ago? Like how long has it been since you've opened your own brokerage?
I opened my own brokerage in December, so it was
Okay.
only about 3 months ago. So it's been pretty recent. I
Mhm.
was a broker and I had my broker's license for about a year and a half. And originally, the reason I got that was just for tax write-offs. To be honest, I didn't actually know I was going to open my own brokerage at that time, but this was just a positive benefit that kind of came out of it.
Yeah, that is funny how you take little steps here and there and you have no idea how it's going,
Yeah.
that it's gonna snowball into something different in the future. Well, that's awesome. So in my, like foreshadowing at the beginning of our interview that I know Deanna from a past life, hearing you jump from the big box brokerage into now you own your own brokerage, just it kind of sets the stage for what we're going to go into next. So a lot of people, I want to, key in on what you just said. You didn't want to get stuck in your ways. And then also your father-in-law said this is something that he wished he would have done, but now he felt like it was too late. What was it that you did though before you even got into real estate?
So I went to school to be a teacher. I love teaching. Ever since I was in first grade, I told everyone I was going to be a teacher my whole life, right? That was everything to me. And I did that. I went to college. I did a great job. At least I think I would say I was a pretty good teacher.
Hmm.
And I absolutely loved it. It was everything. I gave it all I had. I was really time committed as well as heart committed to being there. But then I had kids, and when you have kids, your whole life changes a little bit, and your priorities change a whole lot. Before, my priorities were my students in my classroom and doing a nice job for them. But then when I had my own kids, it was really hard to balance that out for me because I was so used to giving everything I had and being at a certain level of a teacher. And I knew I couldn't do that and be a really good mom at the same time.
Hmm.
On top of that, here in Michigan, people don't get paid a lot to be a teacher. So when I had my second child, I was pregnant with her, I realized that I would be paying the exact same amount to daycare that I would be getting put into my bank account at the end of every month. So it just didn't make any sense to be giving up so much to my family and not actually making any money at the same time. So I was a teacher. I loved it, but I knew it wasn't right to stay there and continue that.
Yeah, when one of the reasons I wanted to interview Deanna is because I feel like our stories are so similar, and when I retell my story, it's basically the same version of what you just said. So I used to be a teacher, and then I realized again, Michigan teacher. Um, by the time you take daycare costs into consideration, your paycheck is sort of out the window. So that's when I left, and it was really difficult for me to remove myself from that platform because I felt like my identity was sort of wrapped up in that. And I also didn't have a clear game plan of what to do next. So how did that go for you when you made that leap from or that transition from I love what you said, your priority was your students until, and that
Mhm.
that was mine as well. My priority was my students until other little
Right.
priorities came along.
Mhm.
Like, how did that go for you? And I know that you're married and that was probably a big conversation that you guys had to have. Like, walk us through that part where you came to that realization of like, this is what I went to college for. This is my career, and I think I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, that was difficult. It was very difficult. Not because I didn't have the support. My husband was really, really supportive of that. He said it makes complete sense looking at the numbers, looking at the time. It makes sense. Why wouldn't you? It was more I had to get over my own mental block. Like I said, I thought this picture in my head of this is what I was going to be the rest of my life. This is what I was going to do. And it was kind of my identity. I built myself up as I was this teacher and this is who I am. And to completely step away from that, it took a lot of courage. To be honest, I kind of cheated a little bit. I didn't step away 100% when I quit. I took just a leave of absence at first, which meant that if that first year didn't go well, I could always go back if I chose to. It wouldn't be the exact same position, but they would allow me to come back. So I did take that leave of absence as my backup, my just in case plan. Um, but I never ended up wanting to actually utilize that. They kept calling. They gave me that leave of absence. They kept extending it. So I think I had it for 4 years, even though you're only supposed to have 3. But it just didn't feel right. I think the biggest hurdle was that initial shift in my mind where I had to tell myself I'm capable of doing something else and still being successful and good at it.
Mm.
As you make that leap, you don't feel trapped anymore, and you don't feel like you have to go back to what you were, once were.
Yeah, it's a transition that is difficult, and at least for me, my experience was like just a lot of really raw, honest conversations with myself before even having conversations with other people um, about that. And it's so crazy how emotionally tied to the thing that you get. You went into this for a means of income, but it was as a passion pursuit.
Mhm.
And I remember feeling the same way. From the time I was in middle school, all I wanted to do was be a teacher. And so Deanna used to teach with my husband, and that's how we know each other. They used to teach at the same school, and so I had left teaching before you did. And I remember when he told me that you had finalized things and you were going to do something different, that I was really, really proud of you. And I didn't know you well enough to like reach out to you and say that, but like I just want you to know that like in the background, I was like, yes, yes, like another one has left to go on to pursue entrepreneurial dreams. And isn't it amazing, that it's in real estate? But so you said that you took that leave of absence for 4 years. In that 4-year period, what did sort of like your day-to-day, life look like?
At first, it was really hard because I actually left teaching without a plan. I didn't know that I was going to do real estate. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to be just a stay-at-home mom to basically cover that daycare cost at first. So I that's a very boring lifestyle, that stay-at-home mom life. And I didn't realize that, especially coming from teaching where you can't sit down, you can't go to the bathroom when you want, you can't eat when you want, you're on someone else's schedule, to going to you have your whole schedule to plan around this tiny little baby. So
Hmm.
the first 6 months were very hard, and I realized very quickly that I was not made to be a stay-at-home mom. It just isn't in me. I need a little bit more than that.
Hmm.
So that's when I kind of started looking for other things. I decided to become a fitness instructor just to give myself some time talking to other adult humans throughout the week, which was nice. And I still do that on the side, but that's really just more of a hobby than a career. Um, so the biggest thing was I was kind of trapped at nap time. My kids are the really great children that only sleep when your body's like right next to theirs at nap time. So I remember just laying in bed for hours because I didn't want to get up because then they would wake up and be monsters the rest of the day. So I remember just laying there thinking, well, what can I do with my time right now? I have no idea what to do, but I can't get out of this bed. So that's when I decided to sign up for a real estate course online. And I did it 100% in bed at nap time right next to my children. Um,
That's amazing.
that took about, I would say, a year um, from when I left teaching till I got my license. And again, I got my license in bed while napping. And then after that, you don't just jump into real estate. You realize I don't know what to do with this license. So that was a whole nother transition as well. So in that 4 year period, it was definitely consistent transitions of what do I want to do and what do I want my life to look like, because it was constantly changing until I figured out where I wanted to be.
Hmm.
Yeah. So eventually I just became an assistant to my father-in-law. I was telling you about, he's been in real estate a long time. So I became his assistant. I would help show houses for him, open houses for him on the weekends when my husband was home. And I decided to start taking over kind of social media management for us because he didn't know how to do that or what to do with that. And that was something I could do at nap
Hmm.
time in bed. So that's where it all sort of started. But it took about a good 2 years to settle into, I can actually do this in real estate and make money. And this is a good career shift for me.
No, that's excellent. I think that's a parallel story if a lot of work from home moms were to, get honest about what those infant years, those toddler years really, really looked like. There are some who had a bunch of capital, so like out the gate they could have nannies or they could have assistants, etc. But a lot of women who choose to leave their career because it becomes, kind of like that secondary priority to your primary priority, your children. um there is a period of time where you absolutely feel trapped. So I just want to
Mhm.
like point out that word that Deanna used because I so resonate with that. Like I was so grateful to be able to have that time. And like I was picturing you like snuggled in bed next to the kiddos, understanding that you had an amount of gratitude for those moments. And looking back on that, at least for me, those times I look back on them with like just like such sweetest memories. But in the moment, I did sort of feel chained to my babies. Like
Mhm.
they were just these little ball and chains, and I was chained to them and I was trapped. You use that word trapped. Um, I love how you used that time as you were laying there in bed. I thought you were gonna say, "Well, while I was laying there in bed, I read inspirational mindset books," or something like that, and I'm like, "Well, I might as well put my earbuds in and, like, listen to podcasts on YouTube," and you were like, "No, while I'm sitting here, I'm gonna hop on and I'm gonna take a course and I'm gonna make, like, a complete career shift while I'm sitting here next to the sleeping baby." And that's amazing because I used nap time to do a lot of business building as well. Thankfully, I could put my down mind down and go in the other room and do things, but nap time was business building time, and I think that that's just, a parallel to a lot of work from home moms' stories is nap time was our business building time. And so I really, really would encourage anyone who feels that same way because stay-at-home mom life is beautiful, but I felt the same way that you did. I needed more. I needed that outlet. And before real estate, I tried other things as well, but, you know, just sort of literally, I needed something. I needed some sort of outlet. So, if what do you think your biggest challenge was then? So, you said you had that real estate license. You didn't exactly know what to do with that license. So you were out and you were um, doing open houses, et cetera. Like, what was your biggest challenge, do you think, from going from this identity of I'm a teacher, now I've got this identity as I'm a stay-at-home mom, and now I've got this identity as I'm a realtor. Like, what was your biggest challenge with, like, shifting who you were when you were out in different spaces doing different things? Like, you had your realtor's hat on. What was challenging
Um,
about that?
I think the biggest thing is I just had to realize that they're not as big of a shift as I thought. Like to other people, it wasn't an issue.
Mhm.
When I first started, they tell you need to tell all of your family and talk to your family constantly about how you're a realtor. And I had a hard time with talking to
Prospect
my
everybody.
friends. Yeah. Um, just about how I'm a realtor because like you said, I thought in my mind I was always a teacher. And so it was difficult for me to talk to the people who did know me and knew how passionate I was about teaching, to start talking about something completely different because in my mind, I thought they were separate. It
Mhm,
took me a little while to figure out though that they're not that different. My whole passion right now in real estate is to educate other people. It's not to sell them houses because I'm not a salesman. I didn't go to school to sell things. I went to
mhm,
school to learn how to educate others in the best way. And
mhm,
so I needed to fix that in my mind and realize that I'm just teaching people in a different way. I'm helping people still, but in a completely different setting. Um,
mhm,
and as soon as I realized that, I mean, even at home, I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm constantly helping my kids, teaching them, raising them, showing them, that they have options as well, and helping them choose those best options in life. That's my goal as a mom as well. Everything kind of merges together in your mind when you realize that your same skill set is the exact same. You just have to apply it in a different way.
mhm.
So applying that to real estate, I love that. Now that's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, a couple of things to point out here. I think the main thing is Deanna saying that, so number 1, you already have these skill sets. You're just applying them in a different way. And then the other thing was, you know, the biggest mindset transitional obstacle was just yourself. There's really nobody out there in the marketplace who is even keeping tabs on what it is really that you're doing, we're doing, anybody's doing anyway. No one is like, hey, didn't you used to be a teacher? Are you sure you're qualified to be showing me this home? Like, no one's really doing that, even though those big things are going through your head. Um, but yes, let's expand a little bit on what you just said because I think a lot of people need to hear that. You people in general already have so many skill sets. We just tend to pigeonhole ourselves. Like my degree is in finance, my degree is in education. I I'm in nursing, things like that. Like expand on that. What do you mean by you can take the current skill sets you have and apply them elsewhere?
So in education, right, you go to school and they teach you how to use what you're best at. I'm really good at connecting with children. I'm good at connecting with people. It doesn't have to be kids. I'm good
Yeah.
at relating to them and communicating with them, something that they don't know. Real estate's a whole lot easier to educate people who actually want to learn. That's much easier to do. However, you're still going to have stubborn people, just like you have stubborn students.
Mhm.
Just learning how to work with different types of people is a huge one. So no matter where you're at, whatever job you're in, you're good at something, right? That's what drew you to that. And that's where you have to figure out how can use that same skill that you're good at and just apply it in a different way to a different setting. Because most of the time, it doesn't matter what you pick at as your career. If you are a good communicator, if you're a good teacher, if you're a good listener, all of those things apply across the board. It doesn't matter where you go.
If you
They
can
always,
be creative enough, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So no matter what it is, whatever you're good at in your current job, that's going to apply no matter where you go.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's something that it took me a little while to see that as well. And John Paul and I have been teaching people things and putting things out there on social media and starting to put like tutorials together on our YouTube channel and just telling ourselves like these two skill sets that we have aren't necessarily separate. Like our skill sets as educators, our skill sets as real estate investors, now starting to combine those two skill sets and doing the same thing that you said, like educating people on just different things that they can do in the real estate space. Um, so that is super, super great. So how old are your kiddos?
Now they are 9 and 7. That was a
Mhm,
real game changer when they both went to school. That
mhm,
was a big. changer as far as business went. It really opened up a lot of options. I don't think I would have been able to open up my own brokerage had they still been at home with me. It's just easier to devote my time and separate my calendar when I know that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing and I am too at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's just another encouragement that I have for work at home parents. Doesn't, we're definitely typecasting, saying work at home moms, but work at home parents, if you have those entrepreneurial in your heart, to not think of that time when they're little and you are chained to them, to not think of it that way, to think of it as, this is your time to build, this is your time to study, this is your time to learn, this is your time to maybe dip your toes in the water and make a few mistakes, so that when, if your plan is to send them to school, when they go to school, now you've done all of that foundational work and you can launch. I think that's fantastic. I think that would give a lot of people hope, um, for just a lot of people who feel like they're at home and they're trapped, which I
Yeah.
definitely felt that way. But let's let's dive more now into the thing that you've got going on, your new brokerage. So it really sounds like you've prepped the ground and laid this amazing foundation. You have your education background, you have your real estate agent background, you worked for someone else, and it's amazing that it was your father-in-law, because then you knew that you were in an environment that cared about you. That's definitely something I would encourage other people out there. If you feel like you are in an environment, I'm talking about like the workspace where you might be dipping your toes into, if you feel like you're in an environment where they don't really care about your success and your growth, maybe you should find someplace else. But then you stepped out and you launched your own brokerage. What, how did that go for you? What did you do in order to make that happen? And like, what is that doing for you now?
Um, Again, it's not just physically, but it was a big step mentally. So I started under my father-in-law, who's been doing it forever, and everyone kind of saw it as I'm always working for him, under him, as a part of him, which he's been amazing, and I'm so lucky that I got to kind of shadow him and grow up in real estate underneath him. Um, but the biggest mental shift is I want to know that I am a real estate agent for me too. And so this brokerage was kind of something for me. So this is my business now. I get to sort of lay out the groundworks how I like to do things. He gave me a lot of freedom underneath him. Even in the box brokerage, you have some freedoms, but there's a lot of things that you aren't able to do as well, a lot of restrictions. So I like being able to set up my business the way that I feel is best for my clients, instead of worrying about what's best for necessarily the big brand. I think it's
Mhm.
better to focus a little bit smaller on what's right for me right here and right now in this climate, because real estate is changing, but it's always changing. And so to be able to have that freedom is the reason why I shifted to that. And now I'm able to give a lot more, not just of my own time, but a lot more financially. I get to have those connections more for my clients rather than for the big brokerage. Um,
Mhm.
I love that, and I think it's been the best decision I've ever made. I don't necessarily look at real estate the same way as every agent, but I think that's because I come from that education background. A business mindseted person is a lot different than a teaching mindset person.
Mhm.
Not that they don't cross paths, they do, but I look at things a whole lot more about the people that I'm helping, and that's always been my goal.
Yeah, we were trained to, like, just nurture everyone that comes across our path in, the most holistic way, which I know is just such a buzzword in the education community, but I can just envision it, like, you are taking clients under your wing, taking them through this experience, this journey, and you are really thinking about them in all sorts of different ways that don't even have anything tied to do with the deal that you're doing with them or the business partnership. Yeah, that's amazing. Um, Once you got rolling with your brokerage, what are some things that you think that you did really well when you launched? What are some things that you are making your this brokerage that you have set? How are you making yourself stand out or maybe like outshine your competition? Like how are you different from that big box, more like corporate setting that you referenced?
Um, so one of the things I'm able to do a little bit more in the corporate setting, you have to be certain places. Sometimes there's specific staff meetings or trainings that you have to attend. Now that I'm my own independent brokerage, I get to sort of look at myself and step back and think, what is it that I need help with? So I can actually train myself and go to specific trainings that are targeted a little bit more to my weaknesses, not necessarily everyone's. So,
Mhm.
for example, there's a lot of old school ways of thinking. One of the biggest challenges when I first started real estate was that, every real estate agent to be successful, they have to door knock, they have to call these people, they have to do these certain steps, call this certain number of people, every single week. That's
Mhm.
not necessarily how I prefer to do business. Mine looks a little bit different. I'd rather organically or holistically reach out to those people and spend time with them and kind of gain my connections that way. So this year I've decided I have like monthly reach outs or events that I'm hosting. So for Mother's Day, for example, there's like a mini photo shoot that I'm launching next week that the families get to come and, take a mini photo shoot of their family just for them, things that they can take away to them instead of necessarily things that just bring me income right away. It's about those connections that you make so that they make that connection and want to stay working with you. That's my ultimate goal. Um,
This is
so
something that you're offering your clients, this Mother's Day photo shoot?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about it. And we do little things like in the big box brokerage. We did have, one big event a year where they gave away pumpkins, which is great, but um I feel like when you have a really big event, it's very hard to actually connect with each and every person. That one specific time of year, I'd rather have them be a little bit more intimate and connect a little deeper than that.
How did you come up with that strategy for setting yourself apart? Like, for example, the photo shoot. That to me is brilliant. I wouldn't have thought of it. Like, how did you come up with those ideas?
I don't know. I do a lot online. I follow a lot of different agents across the country. And like I told you before, I get to pick the trainings that I go to now. So a lot of the trainings that I go to are about how to connect and help my clients on a better level than just making it to closing. So I try to pick up and listen and honestly copy others. It's not necessarily my fresh idea. I'm not the first one to think of it.
Mhm.
But find something that other people aren't doing. And I think, wow, that's great. They would really like that. I try to adapt it and sort of bring it on. So I listen to, like I said, podcasts. I follow a lot of different people on social media. I enjoy connecting with people on social media. So I like to see what drives my clients because not all of my clients would be the same as someone else's. If you don't have a lot of families, that would not be a very good event for you. But you really have to put yourself in their shoes and think, what would they like?
Yeah, so if someone is out there and they're listening and they're just sort of, like, wrestling with an objection of, "I don't even know what to do," what Deanna just said was, she's not out here reinventing the wheel. She's modeling what other successful people are doing and then putting her own flair, her own brand, like her own style, and then even paying attention to her own specific clients, what might work for them. So that was definitely an obstacle that John Paul and I had to overcome was we don't know how to do the thing. Like we used that a lot more as an excuse to kind of like coddle our own fears, I think, before we stepped out and we, made some transitions, some more serious transitions in real estate. And that's been something that we've absolutely done. Just realizing that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just need to put yourself around other people who are doing the thing that it is that you wish to do and model them, which is not copying them. It's just modeling the successful strategies, et cetera. And as teachers, I mean, that's another thing that we were trained to do is as a teacher, you're not really given a whole lot of free reign to just teach the thing, to teach the curriculum in whatever way you want to. It was pounded into our heads, like follow the model, like follow the research-based model, right? And so that's fantastic. But then you're just taking that and applying it to what you're doing, with real estate. You're following other research-based successful models and then just putting your own spin on it, just like every teacher does in their own classroom. That's fantastic. Yeah, so it is so interesting to me, because I really, really connect with your story, um, that you were able to see how the skill sets that you had from teaching transitioned over into what you do with real estate when so many other people would find that, more difficult. So that's just fantastic. What advice do you have then, and you can speak on all of it, or just choose one of them and speak on it, but there are other people out there, like, you're doing really cool things. There are other people who would like to replicate the cool things that it is that you're doing. So for somebody who's just starting to think about it or just getting started with their journey, like, what advice would you share for them? And so when I mean, like, you could pick one of them, it's like maybe somebody is a real estate agent and they want to take the next step to get their broker's license, or they have their broker's license and now they need to launch their own brokerage, or they're working in a completely different space and they'd like to step into real estate, maybe even just on the side just to test it out while they still work their original job. Like, what advice do you have for somebody in any of those spaces or all of those places?
I think the biggest thing is just knowing that you don't have to be the same as everyone else. No matter how they took their path, it doesn't have to look that way for you. No one's lifestyle, no one's life is set up to follow step by step instructions, and that's
Mhm,
okay. I think you need to take it one step at a time, what feels right and looks right for you. I mean, have kind of an end goal in mind, but know that that end goal is fluid. It's not something that as soon as you accomplish that, life stops, and this is just where you stay stagnant the rest of your life. And that's the biggest thing, right? I became a teacher and I was doing great. I was crushing it. I loved my classroom. I loved my kids. I loved what I was doing. But that doesn't mean I had to just keep doing that and only that, and kind of flatlining it forever until when you retire. That's not really how at least my brain and my heart was made to work. I love the idea of growing, and growth is going to change every single year. As soon as I accomplish something, that doesn't mean that your life should stop just because you made that goal. You checked it off of your checklist. I think you have to consistently keep looking at what your end goals are, because they are going to change, just like your life changes. When kids came into my life, that was a major change.
mhm,
There's a lot that can change your idea of what your life should look like or what you want it to look like. And just knowing that that's okay to make a different choice, I think is a big hurdle that a lot of people don't realize. They think that they're sort of stuck on this path because they made that decision 15 years ago that they were going to do this. But knowing that you did do it and you accomplished it, awesome. But you can do other things too. It doesn't have to be one and done.
mhm. And it doesn't have to be as big of a, barrier to entry, like when we had to go to college for a handful of years and then get a degree and then maybe get a second degree, et cetera. There are so many things that you can pivot into that you do not need to go back and spend.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
I don't even know what an undergrad would cost these days. I'm sure it would make me sick, but
Yeah.
you don't have to spend that type of time or that type of money. There are a lot of things that you can do that could get you started much faster, even if it's just taking those steps, um, like Deanna did
Yeah.
of, "Well, here I am parked in this bed at nap time. I might as well do something that's going to, move the needle forward, help me push that ball up the hill." That's amazing. Yeah, I think what you said applies to everybody in any position, whether they're thinking, "I wanna leave my unrelated career and leap into real estate," or they want to make some sort of shift with what they're currently doing in real estate just to go up to the next level. That's awesome. So did you read any great books while you were chained next to your kiddos during nap time or at any other point in time? Like, do you have any, real estate specific or entrepreneurial mindset business books that you'd love to recommend to people?
One of my favorite books that I read while my kids were younger, it does relate to real estate sort of, but I didn't pick it up because of that reason. I just love Chip Gaines's book. I don't know if you've read it, but Chip Gaines specifically, not Joanna's book, but
Mhm,
what I love about it is everyone knows he's successful right now, but his story of where he started and how many times he messed up and how many, different decisions he made to sort of shift, like I was talking about before.
mhm,
Um, it didn't necessarily hinder him, and he talks about in that book. It didn't hold him back. He looked at it as a learning curve, as an educational experience to make himself better.
mhm,
So I love that. I love how not perfect he is, and you can still be successful without having everything figured out ahead of time. Sort of just taking it one step at a time, like I said earlier.
yeah, no, it's fantastic. I have not read the book, but definitely
That's it.
familiar with their story, as I'm sure most people are. So if somebody really wants to pull something just from surface level, you think about it, they were well into being married, having children. They had 4 or 5 children before anybody even knew who they were. So they were definitely like, I'm not at all saying that they were old when they got started, but if you're in your 30s or you're in your 40s and you're like, I just don't know." I mean, think about Chip and Joanna Gaines. Like,
Right.
they were in the thick of it
Same
before
stuff.
anybody even knew who they were.
Right.
So that's yeah. No, that's definitely something I haven't even thought about that. I haven't even connected that with them. But yeah, if you stand back and you think about it, they were in the thick of it. And they had way more kids than I do.
Yeah. They had
And
a lot.
they're way
Yeah.
more famous than I probably ever will be, you know? So
Yeah.
that's amazing. Let's talk about your favorite movie that you feel connects with like the entrepreneurial spirit, whether it has anything to do with business or not. The plot doesn't have to have anything to do with business, but do you have anything that resonates with your entrepreneurial soul?
Oh, this one's a hard one for me. You probably don't know this about me, but we don't have TV in our house.
Oh, right on.
We haven't had it since my kids were born. It's just a lifestyle that we chose.
Mhm.
Everyone, how do you get everything accomplished? If you get rid of TV, you end up with a lot more time in your day. So
Oh, amen.
I don't watch a ton of movies. Obviously, I'm not like keeping my kids from movies. They know what they are. They have watched them, but um, I'd probably have to pick a kid movie only because those are the only movies that I ever watch is with my kids. But um, let's go with The Brave Little Toaster. That's from when I was
Oh
little.
my gosh,
Remember that
childhood
one? I
classic,
love that
yes.
one. I haven't watched it in a really long time, but um,
Same, but I watched it a ton when it was relevant.
yeah, I loved it when I was little, and I love that. At the end, he ends up saving the day doing something that he wasn't necessarily intended for,
Mhm.
and that's probably why I would pick that. Right, even though he was made just to be a toaster, he's so much more than that.
Did you hear what she said, everybody? She does not have a television, so when people ask her, "How do you get so much done?" The answer is because she doesn't have a giant distracting box or several throughout her home. John Paul and I didn't have a TV for the first 7 years of our marriage because we had our first child, in year 5, and then when he was a toddler, I realized if I put on these little ABC 1, 2, 3 videos for him, he will sit down for, like, half an hour and
Yeah,
watch a little show. So my parents actually were getting a new TV, gave us their old TV. So now we have a TV and now I feel like because we've introduced it, we can't remove it, but I
yeah,
don't want to discourage anybody out there who's thinking about like maybe we should just unplug and not have a TV. I think the way that you've structured it is much better just not having it. But no, I think back to that like when we didn't have a television, those really were like those years that I was grinding and, like, trying to build things, to launch things, etcetera. Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm so inspired. John Paul will not be on board with that, especially not now. Not now, like, we're back into it. We're TV people again, but yeah, so last question that I have for you is, if anybody wants to reach out to you, connect with you, contact you, how can they connect with you?
yeah, absolutely. I'm on social media, right? You can find me on Facebook at Niemasz Real Estate. That's our group page. I'm on Instagram, Deanna Niemasz Realtor. You can find me there, or just shoot me an email. My phone number. You Google me. Everything's on there because it has to be. But
Mhm.
I love helping others. That's really what my purpose is. It doesn't matter what platform I do it on. So always feel free to ask if you have any questions.
No, fantastic. So if anybody wants to learn anything about the retail estate space, reach out to Deanna and we'll have your contact information posted. Whether it's on YouTube, it'll be in the description. If it's elsewhere, it'll be in one of the comments or in the body of the post. And then if anybody wants to learn more about the real estate investing side of it, John Paul and I actually have a workshop that we do on our YouTube channel. So head over to our YouTube channel. It's just Blair Clark. You'll find us. And on Monday evenings from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time, we do a weekly workshop on YouTube. So you can head over there and actually get your questions answered live while we're teaching it on YouTube. So thank you so much, Jana. I really, really appreciated this interview. It was great catching up with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
And for all of you out there in internet land, I have 2 directions for you to follow. Number 1, always remember there is no spoon. And number 2, remember to join us for weeknight workshop every Monday night from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We are going live on YouTube to teach you everything that we have done with real estate investing that has allowed us to increase our income by over $100,000 per year. So if you are thinking, I would love to get into real estate investing, but I have no idea what or who or how in the world to make any of that happen, then you want to join us for the live event, because after we're done teaching the strategy, we then answer your questions. You have an opportunity to ask us a question right there, and we answer it on the spot. So for anybody who wants to learn how 2 broke teachers broke into the real estate investing space, then you better join us live on Monday nights for the workshop. We'll see you there.